Welcome back, North Florida wrestling fans. We have an amazing episode for you today with Mike Crowder of Lincoln High School and Clay Allen of Florida High. They are here to talk about the Big Ben Brawl that just went down a couple weeks ago. It sounds like it might be the makings of a premier summer tournament right here in the heart of North Florida in beautiful Tallahassee. So stay tuned to get some insight from these amazing coaches and make sure you subscribe. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the North Florida Wrestling Show. We got Clay Allen of Florida High and Mike Crowder of Lincoln here to talk about the Big Ben Brawl that they just put on here in Tallahassee, going on the same weekend as the formal Disney Duels, the AAU Duels that got moved to Fort Lauderdale. It was an awesome event, but we're here to talk to them a little bit more. Clay, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Mike, welcome back on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So let's go ahead and get into it. So whose idea was this? I know it's the very first annual one, but who brought the idea up? Who got it started? Go ahead.
I don't remember who brought it up. That's what I was.
I do.
There you go. Crowder. Maybe Crowder brought it up, but then it was just
So it kind of went like this. So when we found out everything was moving, just sitting there thinking about it, and then I realized that the Jazztown was no longer a thing, and just kind of talking about it and going, man, I wonder if people would, drive to Tallahassee. They went to Louisiana. Why wouldn't they drive to Tallahassee? If it was from Florida teams. So I just started thinking about it, and I called Clay and I was like, hey man, what do you think? And he was like, so we kind of thought it might be a good idea. But then before we even decided whether we were going to do it, we polled teams. He was at the Clay Rotary and I was at the Braves. And we're like, all right, let's poll some teams and see. And everybody I talked to was like, I'm in. Like, would love. And so at first, we kind of just like, well, can we run this with 20 teams before we even really thought about the format, which was kind of silly. I should have thought about the format before I did it. But we had, 25 right off the bat, and good teams, solid teams. So I was like, all right, and we kind of had a vision of what we wanted, and Clay had, an idea of like what to allow, like how many from your community could you actually use? I mean, and can they be state placers and state qualifiers if they're not in your own team, stuff like that. So, because we still wanted it to be basically a community team. Like I wanted it to be like, people in your area, we didn't want all-star teams, we don't want, and so that was kind of the thing. And then it eventually shrank down to 16, which turned out to actually work out really, really well with the format we have and the setup we had.
What format did y'all go with?
And again, it wasn't the exact format that I wanted, but track wrestling can't make brackets. They can't do customs, right? So when I brought it up, I was like, all right, well, can we do this? And they couldn't do it. So I had to use it's an 8-team scramble. And what it does is you have a pool A and a pool B, and then the winner out of pool A wrestles the winner out of pool B, and the seconds and the thirds all the way down to the 8. Well, then after that, we went to another version of that same thing, right? We went to another version of it. Then we went to another 8-man scramble, 8-team scramble, and we had 2 levels. So you had 2 of those going on the first day, a morning pool and an afternoon pool. And then what you did, we took the top 4 out of here and the top 4 out of here, made them in the afternoon pool, and the bottom 4 out of each one of them, put them in the bottom pool. So that's kind of how we structured it. I really wish we would have had a little bit of a cross in there on the first day, but I couldn't get them. There's no bracket that exists besides the ones that Clay and I have personally created that could do it on track anyway. I tried. And so since they couldn't do it and they don't do customs, this was as close as we could get. Because in reality, if we'd have been able to do first and seconds and third and fourths at the end of the first day, we probably never would have had anybody wrestle the same team twice. And that's the only thing that kind of goofed it up. At the end of the day, on the very last day, we did have 4 teams that rematched based on their performances. Yeah. So we kind of had to do a little finagling because we all wanted to wrestle different people the whole time. So we made that work for them.
Yeah, sometimes I don't mind wrestling the same team, especially if it's like a close contested duel. It's like it's kind of cool to get that opportunity to run it back.
And we
Clay,
had
I
a lot of those.
Clay, I want to say I do find it funny that the guy that architected all the brackets, his team ended up winning the whole thing. So
Man,
congratulations, Mike Crowder. But now I'm a little suspicious.
hey, shout out. Look, I'll give a quick shout out to Coach Goog, who pointed that out at the social on Saturday night. He's like, "Oh man, look, Crowder made that top. Who made these pools again? Who made these brackets? But again, I'll make my jokes about it and stuff like that. But again, Mike and I and Jake Birch, who helps Mike out, we spent a lot of time looking at rosters. We kind of tasked Jake. Jake is like a savant when it comes to knowing like who is everything, right? Like he knows everybody everywhere in the state of Florida. And so, we asked him like, hey, can you look at these rosters and like just kind of look at them and say like, what do like try to number them, 1 through 6, 1 through 8, whatever. And let's try to split these teams up the best that we can, right? Like, not necessarily seed them, but again, like if there's a clear 1 and 2, or even a clear 1, 2, and 3, you just want to make it to where 1 and 2 don't see each other until the very, very end, if at all possible, or at least, the best that you can. And so, again, we spent a lot of time, and I know Jake did, and Crowder and I, we had a group chat that constantly blew up. And again, like one of the things that happened is people, lineups, and again, it's the summer, man, so stuff changes, and so lineups were very fluid. And so things would change. And I mean, again, like North Fort Myers had some issues driving up, like 2 sets of car issues where they ended up having to get stranded on the side of 75 in Gainesville, which you know how I feel about Gainesville, Jordan. And so, they're stuck out there. And so we had to swap them with Middleburg in the morning pool, and then had to do another move so that it didn't, again, it's just, it's kind of hard in the summer, especially like I said, when you're kind of putting together teams. And, like Mike said, the biggest thing that, I told Mike is that it's not like we don't want all-star teams. It's not an all-star event. I don't want you putting together the best team that you possibly can. I want you to come with your team. And if you and your school aren't able to put together a full team, right? Like then pull from your area. By all means, put together a team, but only 3 of them can be state qualifiers or state placers, not from your school, right? So, like Jordan, when you come next year, if you're putting together a team from Niceville, by all means, pull North Bay Haven kids and pull Bay kids and, pull Rutherford kids and stuff like that. But only 3 of them can be state qualifiers or state placers, because again, like we don't want it to be stacked where, because we've seen it, right? Like, and we all, there's plenty of talk on the message boards about people that put together these all-star teams. And so again, like I don't wrestle in these off-season dual tournaments to make random kids better. Like, I want to take care of my kids first and foremost. And then I go my area, right? And then I go to my region. And that's why, generally speaking, like if you look at any of the dual meet teams that I put together, a lot of the times I have 1A Region 1 kids on my team because I know the coaches. I have a relationship with the coaches, and I'll reach out to them and just be like, hey, what's this kid weighing right now? Will he come and wrestle for us? We'd love to have him. And we did that again this year, Turner Glenn from Episcopal came over and wrestled for us, and Josh Mercer from Liberty County. And we had a 215 from Suwannee. So, again, like it's about trying to get your kids competition, the best that you can. And so again, like, all jokes aside, like there was a lot of time that was spent trying to even out the pools to make it as good as it possibly could be from a competition standpoint. And you look at those scores, and there were a lot of really close dual meets, which Mike and I even kind of talked about it a little bit, that there were a bunch of really close dual meets, on both days that could have gone either way.
Yeah. And in the end, when you look at the whole thing, the number 1 on the undefeated team on the silver or on the pool A and the undefeated team in pool B both met in the finals. And it was a 1-point dual meet in the finals. It was impressive, and the teams that were right there behind them had super close dual meets with the championship teams. So it was very well balanced overall. Like if you look at the dual meet scores for the most part, there were some close duels that could have went either way. I mean, even at the end, if you wrestled it again, it would have had a different score at the end for sure. Like it was a very competitive final too.
It was a great, like, again, I kept glancing over there, and again, I think Mike had a kid that was losing close at the end and took the kid down and pinned him. And again, like, that's huge, right? And then at the end, you've got, like usually heavyweight matches are like, oh, but I mean, again, like you've got something that could potentially be a state finals match this year, sure. And that thing decided the dual meet, Ryder's wrestling North Fort Myers heavyweight. And, Ryder's smart enough to know, like, he just can't give up a major here, and things like that. So, I mean, it's heated and contested. And, again, it was a lot of fun. And it also worked out to where everybody was done before that was done. So we're all standing mat side, watching this heavyweight match that, again, like I said, like that could be a state finals match right there. So it was really good competition all weekend.
Shout out to y'all's ability to get Manatee and North Fort Myers to come up to Tallahassee. Even as, like, we said the AAU duels got moved to Fort Lauderdale. It's a pretty close distance for them, but you were able to convince two top quality teams to come up to Tallahassee and mix it up with us. So that helps.
Well, originally we had way more than that. I mean, we still had Heritage, and they're from Palm Bay. We originally had Merritt Island too, and he really, really wanted to come because Graham was one of the first people to reach out to me. We also had Springstead in there originally as well. So like the original 20 was another level of like, wow, this is going to be really, really crazy. And, that doesn't even include Clay High School and Suwannee High School and Florida High and us and Battle. They put together a really, really good squad, along with Manatee and Norfolk Myers. It was if you look at the teams that were there, and it was a good dual meet tournament. And again, if we would have had everybody like stick to the commitment, I can't tell you how it would have went, because those dual meets would have been crazy as well. It was a really, really balanced event, and putting the seating together, that one's tough, all jokes aside or whatnot. But I mean, when we looked at it originally, heck, I mean, we were seated third. I couldn't have told you how that was going to go. We wrestled lights out versus Clay, and then Buchholz had an incredible dual meet versus Suwannee, and they took them out of that contention, which was crazy because I thought that we would meet them. But then they ended up wrestling Norfolk Myers, and it was a super close dual meet with those guys. But so, again, all of them were so well contested, I guess you could say. And so in that aspect, I think everyone seemed to enjoy the format, even the guys that in the morning, because even though we lost a team in the last 2 days, so we kind of had to play some catch up, we wanted to make sure everyone got what was promised. We promised everybody 8 duels. Some teams got 9, but we got our 8, and I wish it would have been a little bit better than that. I wish we could have had the other team that was there. I wish they would have been able to keep their commitment, but it's a crazy thing in the summer wrestling a dual meet tournament. We know that.
Well, I mean, you say it's the first annual one, you're the first one to put in, getting 20 teams to commit and 16 to show up. I think that's, fantastic, honestly, because you got to expect that some things are going to happen, but you got to imagine that next year it's going to grow even more, because I've heard nothing but great things about it. So, that being said, what are the ideas for the growth next year? What are the preparations to grow? Are there any ideas for y'all to grow, or are you trying to keep it more kind of a simple thing? It might be something that's out of your control because you're doing such a great job of it, though.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it? Right. So Clay and I have, we're asking for suggestions from our people that showed up, because we know that hopefully they all want to come back. Right. And definitely want the minimum of 16, and we're going to have to look at the formatting if we extend it any further than that, and how to do it. Do we use 2 gyms? I mean, we can. Do we put 3 mats in one, 3 in the other? And that's the trick, is that we will have to go back and revisit it. But doing it the first time and seeing how smooth it ran and how well it ran, that makes it hard too. It makes it hard to change it too much because it ran so seamlessly and so well. So I don't know. I'm just glad that we were able to find a way to get some great teams together. And again, you mentioned those guys, Manatee, Norfolk Myers, Heritage, but we're friends with all those guys, right? They're our buddies. We're friends with Billy Pankey. We're friends with Dag down at Heritage. We're friends with Goog and Chris Hayward. So, that for those guys, it was an easy sell. Like, hey, what do you think? And they're like, we are in. We love the idea. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, it's such a huge, I know that those are your boys, but those are big names, especially like with Manatee. Manatee was a staple of Disney Duels for a long time, and getting them to switch up and say, we're going to go try this new is big. Some team in Georgia, some team in Louisiana, some team in Alabama might be like, hey, we don't want to drive all the way down to Fort Lauderdale, but we'll go to Tallahassee.
Just thinking about, like the way that things grow, right? Especially like when you're doing things with your team, like, we just like we at Florida High just got a girls coach, right? We actually got two of them. And what I keep trying to tell them is that like, you've got to make it part of what you do to do things in the summer. Like the kids have to understand that like, this is what we do. Right. And that first year, the first time that you do anything, anytime outside of like actual season, you've got some kids whose parents have decided that they were going to go out of town and, whatever. But then like what's going to happen is like, so, you had teams like Middleburg who didn't have their full lineup. Right. And if they did, they would have been a lot to handle, but now next year, those kids that came this year are going to talk about how good the competition was and blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes like a thing, like part of what they do, like I talked about how 3 years ago when I went to Camden's camp, I took 6 kids and I was super excited for the 6 kids, right? Like I was like, I'm taking 6, Last year I took 20. This year I took 22, right? Because that first year it had to become a thing, right? And so now that it's a thing that exists and people start talking about it, they'll get more and more people to want to join in. And I think that's where it starts growing, and because I'm kind of with you, Jordan. I'm like, dude, let's blow this thing up. Like, obviously like we have to have a cutoff point somewhere, but Mike's like, well, let's make sure that we keep it here and there. And there's lots of logisticals. And I'm like, nah, man, we'll figure logisticals. Like, let's go. Like, let's blow it up. Let's get 26. Let's get, 28. Like, let's blow it up and get it to where we have a waiting list and things like that. I'm like talking to Mike all the time. Like, dude, let's go. Let's go. Blow it up. We'll figure it out. Blow it up. Let's see how many we can get. And, again, Mike being a little older than me and wiser, he's like, whoa, slow down. Let's figure it out. And I'm like, no, man, go. Let's blow it up and whatever. And,
y'all have FSU and FAMU right there. Like, so the things are there. The resources are there.
Maybe, but see here's the problem, right? So yes, we have FAMU right here, but they want to charge you $7,000 a day. Right? If Florida State wants $3,000 a day,
maybe 3,000.
Maybe
depends.
But so
Florida High is Florida State's charter school, and so
yeah,
I do have some phone calls to make to see if we can't because again like that changes everything. But like Mike said, like I even floated to him, if we got up to even if we got up to like 24 teams, we could do pools of 6 and 6, 12 total, and like 12 teams are at Florida High, 12 teams are at Lincoln. The next day, and one of the suggestions we got from somebody was turn it into a 3-day where you do pool play for 2 days and then do a bracket on the third, and again, like that's one of the things where like the feedback that we get from people is what's going to determine, like if everybody that came this year is like, heck yeah, get up to 24, let's do 3 days, 2 days of pool play and then a bracket on the last day. Well, then Mike and I sit down and have that conversation. Cause again, it's not that crazy to do, 24 teams and have, 12 at Florida High, do 6 in the morning session with 3 mats, same deal with Mike at Lincoln, and we're not that far from each other either. Like we're probably 10 minutes max.
It might even be 2 miles by the way the crow flies. It's actually really, really close.
So, I mean, again, like he and I, immediately started having those conversations and told all the guys that came, like, look, on your way back, like, start thinking about it, start telling us what we can do. Like, where do we need to be better? What can we do to make it better? What would you guys like to see? What do you want it to look like? So.
Well, dude, fucking Tallahassee is the place to be for wrestling right now. Y'all have a lot going on. Like, seriously, y'all do. You got 2 state champs, crop of really good youth wrestlers about to enter all sorts of different high schools. Y'all doing a great job over there, man. I love what's going on.
Appreciate it. We work really hard.
Yeah, you've been working really hard for a long time, dude. Literally, even before this, I tell everybody, like, all the tournaments that I got over at Tallahassee that you ran over at Lincoln, like, I would leave tired. Like, even though it was kind of restricted with the technology and the way that things were run back then, you would make sure people would get 4, 5, 6 matches and make it as efficient and cheap as possible for us. So, you've been grinding at it for a while. Yeah, dude, I'm glad technology has finally caught up with, your mind. Because you were stuck.
There was a point where I was way ahead, and then they had to figure out, like, hey, what are you doing there? Why are you on your phone? No, that's my stat keeper.
Yeah, I know, dude. I'll tell you, dude. I'm telling you, you were ahead of everybody, dude. You were so far ahead of everybody. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Well, I appreciate y'all being on. I know y'all got that monsoon going over there, so I want y'all to go get somewhere safe.
Okay, we appreciate it, man.
Yep, appreciate it.